8 o'clock, so we can start now. Yasmin has not joined yet, but I don't know. I don't think she left a message. No, she has not left any message. So we can start. So we have already done this para, but I will go through each sentence. Okay, and we'll see. Now, to the modern mind, avatarhood is one of the most difficult to accept or to understand of all the ideas that are streaming in from the East upon the rationalized human consciousness. When he is talking of the rationalized human consciousness, mainly referring to the West, not only Europe but also America included. Okay, so and avatarhood. How can the most imperfect human being, how can he be divine? It's not possible according to them. Okay. There's also another word. The divine is supposed to be omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, but in the physical world, you see no such sign of all this. So there is a great resistance to the idea of avatarhood in the physical world. And that objection applies also to the divine life on earth. Okay. Even in our own culture, Mayavada and Buddhist is our own culture, it is coming from there. Both of them say the imperfection of the physical world is permanent. Therefore, if you want the divine life, you have to give up everything that is there in the physical world, that is body, mind, life, and with your consciousness and soul, you go up and there you will enjoy the divine qualities and divine status. But it's impossible here. That's why it's better to go up there. But now the Vedantic philosophy is exactly the opposite. The Vedantic philosophy is saying everything is divine. There is only one divine. Even that which you see as the most imperfect, most crude, most ignoble, okay, it is all the divine only wearing a mask. Okay? That's the whole thing. So this is what now Swami has to deal with. And he's going to deal with it. For to the modern mind, avatarhood is one of the most difficult to accept or to understand of all the ideas that are streaming in from the East upon the rationalized human consciousness. See, actually, the streaming of Eastern culture from India has been going on for a long time, even 2000 years ago. It is well known that the concept of zero was from India. The mathematics from India went to the Arabs and they transferred it to Europe, because Arabs conquered Europe at one time, not quite a lot. Okay? Even Eastern Europe was all conquered by the Turks. So this is what they're saying, streaming in for the East. And in more recent times, Vivekananda was a major element in the streaming of the East into the West. After that, Vedanta picked up speed, and Vedanta is now spread all over the world. You'll be surprised how it's not only Vedanta, even the Hindu religions, okay, worship of Rama, worship of Krishna is going on like anything. Even that Prabhupada, okay, he instituted the ISKCON, International Society, perhaps, I don't know, for Krishna consciousness. So that also is now caught on in the West, like anything. So of all these, avatarhood is the one that is the most easily challenged. That's what Swami is saying. It is apt to take it at the best for a mere figure of some high manifestation of human power, character, genius, great work done for the world or in the world. Okay? If you are doing it for the world, there is a nobility in it. Or in the world, you are doing something. It can be for the world, but it can be done from above for the world. But in the world, you are coming down into the physical world and do the work for the world. And at the worst, to regard it as a superstition. So, avatarhood, okay, it's just an image, it's a metaphor, it's a simile. That's all, nothing more. Or even more impossible. It's a superstition. And now somebody is listing what avatarhood is to the men. To the heathen, a foolishness. Heathen is one who is a non-Christian. Okay? To the heathen, a foolishness. And to the Greeks, a stumbling block. Because there also, the Greeks, we have discussed last time, 300 BC, huge amount of philosophy. I think the number of philosophers there was more than 12. Okay, so it's a stumbling block because they are all examining, the Greeks are all examining the higher planes of consciousness, but not the lower. The lower, even if it was there, it was scientific. Okay, we know that. The Eureka, the famous example of Euclid, no? What is his name? The one who discovered
Euclid.
the
Archimedes.
Euclid.
Euclid, yeah, that's right. So that is a stumbling block. Next to the materialist. Materialist, impossible. Necessarily cannot even look at it. He won't even consider it, since he does not even believe in God. Now to the rationalist. The rationalist is one who says, I will go by my reason and I will not go by my emotions. So he may concede, but still he will have doubts about it. Or the deist, the one who believes in God. Deist, if you want. Okay. It is a folly and a thing of derision. That's exactly the stand of the Christians, Christianity as well as Islam. Impossible. The divine does not come down here. He remains only up. Human being can go up to heaven, but not the divine. Yeah, tell me.
That is basically they don't believe in rebirth, no? That is why.
Rebirth also they don't believe.
They don't believe. That's why they don't believe in avatarhood.
It's not that. The non-belief in avatarhood is, how can the divine come down into a place which is permanently undivine? That is the point. The divine can be universal. Your discussion is about the rebirth of the individual. Okay, they're not bothered about the individual. Okay, but take the Buddhists. Okay, they also say that this is a world of suffering, but they believe in rebirth. So it's not a question of rebirth. It's a question of the divine who is perfect coming down into imperfection. Impossible, they say. But when they say that, they are not realizing that you are putting limits on God. He has necessarily to be good. He cannot be bad. So you are putting limitations on him. And someone who is limited is a contradiction. How can God be bad? So this is that contradiction is removed by the Vedanta philosophy, which says that everything is divine. Okay? We have the courage to say that. Sriyanga says that in one place. We have the courage to admit that even this imperfection is really a form of perfection. It's a grade. Okay? Not the belief. The non-belief is something, even if you believe in rebirth, they will say that the divine can't come down here. As I said, no? The Mayavadins also, they believe in rebirth. The Buddhists also believe in rebirth. But they don't believe in avatarhood. Okay. It's a folly and a thing of derision. Derision, scorn, okay, looking down upon. So the thoroughgoing dualist who sees an unbridgeable gulf between the human and the divine nature, it sounds like a blasphemy. See, the dualist is one who says the individual soul can realize the divine, but not unite with him. You can have a relation with the divine. You can see the divine, have a relation with him, but you cannot become the divine. The one who says you can become the divine is the Vedantis. The one who says that you can have a relation only with the divine is a dualist. Okay, Madhvacharya and Nimbalkar. There are some others also. Because they have that experience of a relationship with the divine. That's why. But there is Ramanuja who is in between the two. Ramanuja says that you can have a relation with the divine, but you can also become one with the divine. Now that's a rationally it's not possible, because if you become one with the divine, where is the relationship is always between two. Okay. So how can there be a relationship when you are one with the divine? But that is the problem of the rationality. Rationality is a consciousness that belongs to the lower levels. But in the higher levels, rationality disappears. The duality of rationality disappears. Okay. So the rationalist objects that if God exists, he is extra cosmic or supra cosmic. This also we discussed. Extra cosmic is outside the universe. Okay, nothing to do with the universe. Or supra cosmic. He is there. Yes, tell me.
Can you have relation with yourself also? How you relate to yourself? Is that called? Do you need two people only to have a relation? You can have a relation with yourself also, no?
No, it's your mind which is having a relation with your body or having a relation with your vital. It's not the you having a relation with yourself. You can only realize your soul. Okay, at the rational level. But as I said, this is a rational idea. Okay, but the rationality is not the only thing in the world. There are consciousness, levels of consciousness which are more than reason. Supra.
When you talk to yourself also about certain things, you don't need anyone to talk to. No, we can talk to ourselves also but that is, as you say, it is mind and vital. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's your mind talking, body or your vital. Or it's your thinker looking at your own thoughts. There are always two in a relationship. Okay. All right. So the rationalist objects that if God exists, he is extra cosmic or supra cosmic and does not intervene in the affairs of the world, but allows them to be governed by fixed machinery of law. He is in fact a sort of far off constitutional monarch or spiritual king law. Now, we'll look at this carefully. When the individual realizes the Brahmic consciousness, you are not interested in the physical world at all. You are detached from it and you are in a consciousness which is peaceful, not at all bother about what's happening in the physical world, and that no emotion at all. So this status very clearly shows that there is a divine status where the divine is not interested in the physical world. So that's what they are saying. He governs the universe through his nature, his power, and he lets nature do whatever he wants. This is a spiritual fact, okay? But that's not the only spiritual fact. That's the whole question. Okay, Vedanta says you have to go to the highest levels to see the actual truth. But if you get stopped in the middle, you will end up with like a Buddhist or the Mahavada, or like some of the Europeans who experience the self, but nothing more than that. Okay, the self is not the highest; it's very high level of consciousness compared to the normal ignorance of man. But spiritually, it is in the middle. It's not the highest at all. Okay, so this is so he is a far off constitutional monarch. Who is a constitutional monarch like in England or in many European countries? They have kings, but the supreme power is parliament. Okay, the people, not the constitution. They like to have a president. In India, we have a president who is largely powerless. It's a prime minister and the parliament which has the power. So these are constitutional monarchs. God is not interested in what's going on in the world. That's what they say. So he's a king law. And I think briefly I told you about king law. It's an piece of, it's an too much of noise. There is the Aesop. Aesop was one who used to give moral lessons with his stories through animal stories, Aesop's fables. You all know the famous one about the tortoise and the rabbit. So that's only one story. So Then in India also we have the, what are the, I think it's the Panchatantra, na? Where there are stories with animals and there are moral lessons to be drawn from them. Okay. So King Log, the story goes that they wanted a king, the frogs in the well. Okay, they are in a well, very limited. Okay, they can't come out of the well. And they wanted a king. So God sent them a log, a large log of from a tree. He sent them. And that tree is not doing anything. So he is a constitutional king. Okay. So the frog said, no, this is useless. We don't want this. We want someone who is really a ruler. So then Zeus sent them a snake. And the snake ate up all the frogs. So the idea is that one who is a ruler can be like Nero of Rome, absolutely useless and not bothered at all about what's happening in the physical world. Okay, it can be that. Or it can be like a dictator who will rule over and suppress and even kill and be cruel to his subjects. So that's the lesson of the King Log. So King Log here is representing the constitutional monarch. It's either this or that. But there has to be a prime minister who is absolutely thinking all the time about his subjects. That was the idea in India. All the kings were always thinking of the subjects' welfare. Okay, that was the idea. Anyway, so this is the King Log. Now, at the best, I'm reading the next part. At the best, an indifferent, inactive spirit behind the activity of nature, like some generalized or abstract witness Purusha of the Sankhyas. So even in the Sankhyas, you have this concept that the Purusha is powerless and he is only a witness. So, but in the Gita, you have the witness can become the knower, he can become the bharta, he can become the bhokta, he can become the jnani, and he can also become the Ishvara. He can become complete. For that, the individual has to rise in consciousness and see the highest level, third level, not the second level. So, he is pure spirit. Similarly, examining all the ideas, whether the divine can really come down into the physical world. So there are many who don't believe, but even our philosophies, there are at least 3 of them who don't believe that the divine can come down into the physical world. Sankhya is one of them, Buddhism also, and Mayavada also. Okay? He is pure spirit. God is pure spirit.
Rangata,
Yes, tell me.
Rangata, the Mayavadins do not believe in avatarhood.
No, the Mayavadins, I am not 100%, it cannot be, because they are rejecting the physical world. No? So if they are rejecting the physical world because the imperfection is permanent here, I would have to check on that, but I'm not 100% sure. How can it be that if the avatar is, the divine is coming down into the physical world, then the perfection in the physical world is possible? And the Mayavadins don't believe that. They believe the world is Maya, imperfect forever, permanent. That's why they want to go to the higher levels of consciousness.
One example of a Maya, one of the stalwarts of, isn't it Shankaracharya or is it?
Shankaracharya is not a Mayavadi. He is misrepresented as a Mayavadi.
That's why my question was, is it?
Yeah, he is misrepresented.
So anybody, any other who we can say was a proponent of Mayavad theory
Oh, yes.
in India?
Yeah, Jiddu Krishnamurti. Okay. He never believed in a personal God. He believed only in the impersonal. Yeah. They don't believe. You can rise into levels of higher consciousness. But if you are in the lower, then you will always be imperfect. Jiddu Krishnamurti is certainly one. There are many others also who are in that same.
So that means logically they should not believe in avatarhood. That is it, na, Rangata?
That's right.
Or is
That's
it mentioned?
That's right. Okay, so these are the objections. that God is perfect, how can he be imperfect in the physical world? Now, to these objections, the thoroughgoing dualist would add that God is in his person, his role and his nature different and separate from God. Okay? The dualist is one, as I said, is Madhvacharya. There's a whole philosophy behind it, but you can have a relation with it. That's usually the path of bhakti. Okay? Through bhakti, you can have a relation with the divine. He can be your father, he can be your mother, he can be your friend, he can be your guide, but you can never become him. To these objections, the thoroughgoing dualist add that God is in his person, his role and his nature different and separate from God, from man. The perfect cannot put on human imperfection. There you are. The perfect cannot put on human imperfection. The unborn personal God cannot be born as a human personality. These are the objections. So we will deal with these objections later on. With only one concept and one hypothesis, that the divine is everything. That doesn't solve the problem. You have to solve the problem, and that's why Srivastava wrote 900 pages of Life Divine to explain. Okay. So to these objections, the thoroughgoing dualist would add that God is in his person, his role and his nature, different and separate from man. The perfect cannot put on human imperfection. The unborn personal God. There are many who believe in the impersonal, but they wouldn't say God. Okay? Impersonal levels of consciousness. God cannot be born as a human personality. The ruler of the worlds cannot be limited in a nature-bound human action. Nature-bound, body, mind, life. Nature. Here, nature, body, mind, life. Human action, and in a perishable human body. So the human body is perishable, is imperfect. It cannot last forever. It is transient. So how can the divine come down into a transient body? Okay. These objections, so formidable at first sight to the reason, seem to have been present in the mind of the teacher of the Gita, in the Gita. Sri Krishna knows these problems are there. When he says that although the divine is unborn, imperishable in his self-existence, the Lord of all beings, yet he assumes birth by supreme resort to the action of his nature by the force of his self-maya. Okay? This is chapter 4, verse 6. Okay? Ajo api, aja api, san, ajo api san, avyayatma, bhutanam ishvaropi san, although you are angry, prakritim swam abhisthaya, sambhavami mayaya. I take birth again with the power of Maya to give form to myself. This is in chapter 4, verse 6. Okay. This is what the Gita says, that I do come down into the physical world. But note interestingly that even the avatar, when he is coming down, his consciousness is divine, but his body is not. Okay. You must remember that. The body is not. And that's exactly the problem that Srivastava is addressing. He says that one day, even the body can become divine. That's the supramental grace when it comes. You will have a consciousness which is divine, but even your body will be halfway to full divinity. Halfway means it will not be subject to death and disease. It may not be perfect, but it depends on how you define perfection. But if you say that a body which is immune to death and disease is perfect, okay, it can be perfect. But suppose someone says, but it cannot be permanent, then again it is imperfect. Because the Superman can create his own body. He doesn't need to do it through the biological method. Okay? It will be Swayambhu. He will have to create his own body just like the divine. Okay? And this is what Srivastava is dealt with in the supramental manifestation. It's a about 200 pages about the book where he has described all these things, the divine nature of the Superman. Okay, so I go on to when he says that although the divine is unborn, imperishable in his self-existence, the Lord of all beings, yet he assumes birth by supreme resort to the action of his nature and by the force of his self-maya. Prakritim swam adhishthaya. This is the, by leaning on my own prakriti, I take birth again, okay, by my maya. Maya is the power of the divine to make forms. So I make a form for myself, I make a body, and I enter into it. He yet assumes that we are read, that he whom the deluded despise because lodged in a human body is verily in his supreme being the Lord of all. Note the word carefully, in his supreme being. The body is not the supreme being. Body, supreme being is a consciousness. So in the consciousness, he is divine. But in his lower prakriti aspect, he is not yet fully divine. That's the avatar. The avatar is divine and human at the same time. And the human is imperfect. Okay, so that's the phenomenon of the avatar. That is the reason why when the supramental race comes into existence, they are avatars. So that is the reason why they say Kalki is the last avatar. After that, there will be no more avatars. There will be many avatars. So, okay, so that's the whole idea. So, then he goes on to say that he whom the deluded despise because lodged in a human body is verily in his supreme being the Lord of all. That he is in the action of the divine consciousness, the creator of the fourfold law and the doer of the works of the world, and at the same time, in the silence of the divine consciousness, the impartial witness of the works of his own nature. So, at the highest level, he is the Lord. At the lowest level, he is the avatar with a high divine consciousness, but doing everything through his nature. Nature is Prakriti, the force of his being. He is doing everything. And he is an impartial witness. For he is always beyond both the silence and the action. The action is level 1 of the physical world, and the silence is level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, where there is no power. You are only a witness. Okay? But as you keep climbing in the second level, and you go up the ladder of illumined mind, intuitive mind, and over mind, you can start seeing that you can also become the absolute. You can become the man, the human being, with the human soul, which has got power also to do something at the bottom. But the power is not full. That's a Gita's. We have that grade. Na? There is, first of all, you have the witness, Sakshi. Then you become the Anumanta. You realize that you yourself have created the situations in the, you are the one who has given permission to your body, mind, life to do what it is doing. Then you become the Jnata. Then you become the Bharta. You are the supporter. The self is the supporter of the body, mind, life. Then you become the Bhokta. You start enjoying everything. Finally, you become the Ishvara. Okay, you can do that. These are all in the spiritual planes of consciousness. And you become the spirit, the Ishvara at the third level, the Purushottama level. The 3 levels are very clearly given in the Gita also. Kshara Purusha, level 1, the physical world. Akshara Purusha, level 2, the spiritual consciousness. Uttama Purusha, the 3rd level, where you have full power. Here the divine becomes personal and impersonal at the same time. Okay? So this is what is being said. For he is always beyond both the silence and the action, the supreme Purushottama. And the Gita is able to meet all these oppositions and to reconcile all these contraries because it starts from the Vedantic view of existence of God and the universe. Okay? Because the Vedantic view is what? There is only one. There is only the divine. There is nothing else. You think there is something else, but all that something else is only mutations and transitions of the one divine. That's the whole thing. Okay? There is nothing but the divine. And if you say, how can the divine be imperfect? The answer is that he has put on clothes. He has put on many, many layers. And why is he doing that? Again, you have to explain through the phenomenon of Leela. He's playing a game with himself. But again, if you take objection to that and say, what sort of a game is this? Full of suffering and difficulties and perversions. Again, you have to explain another way. So that's why 900 pages of life divine. Okay, so each problem, when you say, it creates, every solution creates another problem. At the highest level, you have to have faith that this is the, and your faith will be justified. This is what Shamra said in many
Yes,
places.
Rangada, because with reason you can't have this solution,
Exactly.
right? Only
Exactly.
faith.
That's right. So it is faith. Base yourself on faith, and your faith will be justified in the end. You will find that
So
it is,
the life divine is all reasoning, but finally it comes to faith.
no. You're making a big mistake. Okay? Life divine is not reasoning. It is entirely based on experience. It's a statement
No,
of experiences. There is a bit of logic here and there for the
yes.
for the normal intellect of man to understand certain things. Logic is there to a certain extent. But the entire main contention of the just 1 minute. They agreed that they forgot.
He forgot and I also forgot.
Yeah, okay, buddy. So Sriranga says very clearly, I never was a philosopher. I've only expressed what I've experienced, what I've experienced, I put it up. But I did this because Paul Richard told me that we should start this philosophical review, the Arya. And because I was asked to do it, and I thought that a yogi, a karma yogi particularly, should be able to do anything in the physical world. That's why I started it. But he didn't say that, but basically he's a poet. He's not a philosopher at all, but with tremendous rationality. So much rationality in a spiritual figure, very rarely you will find. Sriranga himself places Plato and Shankara at the highest levels of intellect. He says that they are unsurpassed intellect. Plato in Greece and in India, Shankara. Because he has put this idea of Mayavada in a most beautiful manner. But it is so contradictory and so difficult to understand his philosophy that people have misunderstood him. But very clearly, he is not a Mayavadin. Why do I say that? All, if you read his shlokas and stotras, full of devotion. Okay? And beautiful, very beautiful stotra. Dakshinamurti stotram. Okay? Then Annapurna stotram. They are all magnificent. Beautiful. Okay, so that completes the para. So you have the solution. The solution is, yes, the divine can come down because he himself is the physical world who has put on many layers and hiding behind. So why does he do that? Again, we come back to the idea of Leela, and again we have to explain Leela also. So this is what we say. What's the time? 34. So we have enough time. We've got 6 minutes. So let's read the next small para. It's not a very big one. For in the Vedantic view. Pallavi, will you read?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll read.
Yeah, go ahead. For in the Vedantic.
For in the Vedantic view of things, all these apparently formidable objections are null and void from the beginning. The idea of avatar is not indeed indispensable to its scheme, but it comes in naturally into it as a perfectly rational and logical conception. For all here is God, is the spirit or self-existence, is Brahman, Ekamavadvityam.
Ekmeva dvitiya.
There is nothing else, nothing other and different from it. And there can be nothing else, can be nothing other and different from it. Nature is and can be nothing else than a power of the divine conscious. All beings are and can be nothing else than inner and outer, subjective and objective soul forms and bodily forms of the divine being, which exist in or result from the power of its consciousness. Far from the infinite being, unable to take on finiteness, the whole universe is nothing else but that. We can see, look at we may, nothing else at all in the whole wild world we inhabit. Far from the spirit being incapable of form or disdaining to connect itself with form of matter or mind and to assume a limited nature or a body, all here is nothing but that. The world exists only by that connection, that assumption. Far from the world being a mechanism of law with no soul or spirit intervening in the movement of its forces or the action of its minds and bodies, only some original indifferent spirit passively existing somewhere outside or about it. The whole world and every particle of it is, on the contrary, nothing but the divine force in action, and that divine force determines and governs its every movement, inhabits its every form, possesses here every soul and mind. All is in God and in Him, moves and in Him moves and has its being. In all He is, acts, displays His being. Every creature is the disguised Narayana.
These guys, Narayan. So, we've got 3 minutes, and the basic contention is this. Even in the physical world, we see that there are grades in everything. So, why can't there be grades in the existence itself? We have full light. Okay. Now, you can consider that as perfection, absolute light. But is that the only thing that exists in the world? There are grades and grades of light. It becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until you have finally total darkness. But darkness is really nothing but the absence of light, or rather, the power of light to make itself less. This is the explanation. Okay? Ignorance is nothing but the power of knowledge to reduce itself. Okay? Ananda is Nirananda. Okay, suffering is nothing but the power of Ananda to make itself less. Okay, consciousness also can make itself less and become inconscious. Okay, the power also can become omnipotence, can become absolute incapacity. It's a power. What you are seeing as imperfection is nothing. It's the power of the divine. There are 3 ways the consciousness can act. One is it can contract itself into a nothing, okay, like a black hole. The other is it can contract itself, it can expand itself into anything. It can become the universe. Or it can also take stand on various. These are not the only 2. The absolute contraction and the absolute expansion is not the only 2. It can expand itself and take its position in many, many ways. And what are these ways? Some say 5, some say 3, some say, like the Vedas and Srimad, 7. Mother says 8, 12. Okay? It depends. So there is a gradation. This gradation will explain how the divine is at the highest level, openly divine, but how the same divine, open divine at the highest level can become the hidden divine at the lowest level. Because there is a gradation. The idea of gradation is very important, and you can very clearly see that it becomes rational. It becomes very understandable. Okay, so this para we will do again, because there are a few things that should be saying. Far from, far from, far from. 3 times he has repeated the word far from. So why is he saying that, and what's he saying? Okay, we'll have a look at that. Okay, we have come to the end of our period.
Guru Rangada. Thank you, Rangada.
Merci beaucoup.